Hi there folks, Dr. Matt Hobson and Dr. Louise Rain from the University of Leicester here with another Google Earth Engine tutorial video. You may remember in a previous video we showed you how to mosaic together Sentinel-2 imagery. You should remember that in order to use Google Earth Engine you need to have a Gmail account and you need to sign up with Google Earth Engine. We showed you how to do that in the last video. So here I am signed into my Google account, and I have in my Google Drive here Google Earth Engine folder, which is where we'll be downloading the results later on in the video. In order to get the code, which Louise is going to share with you, you'll need to follow a link which we're going to share in the description of the YouTube video. And in order to start using the Google Earth Engine code editor, we'll simply cut and paste that link into Chrome web browser. So this is what you'll see. Click on this bar here and drag down. Items written in green are explanations which Louise gives you about the steps of the tutorial and about the various parts of the code which she's written. And then text which is appearing in purple, black and red and so on is actually actively asking Google supercomputers to do things in processing the imagery. The thing we're going to be looking at today is how to use the Landsat imagery to look at a greater time depth, and we're going to specifically be looking at quarrying activities which are threatening archaeological sites in a part of Libya, in the hinterland of an ancient city called Lepcis Magna. One easy way to look at this sort of thing is to use Google Earth Engine time-lapse, which you can access through a web browser. Google Earth Engine time-lapse, you can see the imagery scrolling through from the 1980s to the present in natural colour, but with Google Earth Engine, Louise is going to show you how we can select different bands and perhaps do certain types of analysis. We can look at vegetation or specifically urban growth.
We're going to have a look at how we can edit this script to get the results we want, which we can then download. So please do look at the green text after the slashes, because this will give you some explanation of things you can change and how it works. So first of all, we're going to look at how we define our area of interest. I'm just going to click here to make a bit more space in the viewer. So if you see here, we have a geometry layer. So if you hover over geometry imports, you can see that we can turn that on and off. I'm going to redraw that now so we can see how that's done. So to delete a layer that you don't want, click once on the square, and then you can see there's an option to delete. I'm now going to redraw that by hovering over this square here, clicking on that, and just redrawing a slightly different shape. I can now click exit. Be careful when you come to download your data that you only have one square active at once. Delete any that you don't need. Press run. To make it a bit clearer, we can untick the geometry so that we can see what's on the screen. If we hover over the layers option, you can see we've got 3 images. A Landsat 8 image, a Landsat 7 and Landsat 5. These are actually images coming from 3 different satellites. And if you see in the layers option, you can turn these off. So here we're just looking at L5, which is the oldest satellite, the oldest data. And then we're turning on Landsat 7, slightly more recent data. And then finally L8, which is the most recent data. So you can turn those on and off. But now we're going to look at how we can edit these. If you see here where it says bands, we have 3 different ones, one for each satellite. We talked a bit about band combinations in previous tutorials, but if you look up here at the green text, you see I've given you a few suggestions. For now, we're going to use a band combination that's quite useful for highlighting, in particular, these quarries. So we've used bands that are shortwave infrared data along with colour visible bands as well. But we might want to change those. If, for example, if we wanted to look at vegetation, we might pick this combination that I've outlined up here. For now, we'll stick with this. Every time you change something, don't forget to click run, and then it'll reload the results. So there's some other things in this script we can change as well. There are some things you don't need to change. You don't need to worry about things like cloud masking, for example. We can talk about that in a future video. And you can see the dates of availability. I've put in a date range for you here. This means it will pick a certain number of pixels from that date period and join them together so that you get a nice seamless looking image. If you want, you can change the date. Just make sure you keep it to the same format. You don't accidentally delete any commas, speech marks, things like that. So I'm going to leave that to that date for now. Again, you can see here I've got the date options for Landsat 7. Landsat 8, it's a lot more recent, so it doesn't go back quite as far. So we've got all these things, we've run it, and then it loads up our images. And we can have a bit of a closer look at the results from that. Once we're happy with the band combinations and the dates that we've selected, we may want to think about downloading our image into the Google Drive. So now we just need to look at this bit of text at the bottom here. And this is what does the exporting. You see here that I've got mosaic L5. All you need to do here, if you want to download a different one, is just change the number. So at the moment we're downloading the Landsat 5 image, which was from the 1980s. If you want to download the Landsat 8 image from a more recent date, all you need to do is change that 5 to an 8. This bit here in quote marks is just the name that your file will have. Another thing to be aware of is where I've put the scale as 30. That will give us quite a high resolution image. Again, you can look at the search bar here, find out more about the resolution of the different bands and different satellites. The more recent ones will have high resolution. Sometimes if you have a very big file, it takes a long time to download, and Google Earth Engine may split it into multiple files. To get a lower resolution image, a smaller file, you can make that number bigger. So remember, if you want a higher resolution image, make the scale number smaller, but do have a look at the information about the satellite to decide whether that's worthwhile or not. So once we've done all this, we can press run. As you see, it's reloading the images here. You can see that the tasks tab is highlighted in orange. So click on that. And you can see here it's made a new file download option for Landsat 8, because remember we just named that Landsat 8. So just make sure that it's the image you want to download. We can click on the run button. The last thing I'm going to do is make sure it goes into the part of my Google Drive that I want it to. So if we go back to the Google Drive, we can see we've named the folder GEE. So I'm going to name it that. I'm then going to press run, and then I'll wait while that downloads, and Matt's going to show you what that image looks like in Qgis.
We are looking at Google Drive. Our Landsat 8 image exported from Google Earth Engine is here, and we've also exported a Landsat 5. So now I'm going to download those two files. And then to finish the tutorial, we'll look at these and how we can view them in QGIS. So in QGIS, I'll just open those two layers. Okay, so here we are viewing them in QGIS. And in QGIS, we could look at a layer of the archaeological sites to see how our archaeological sites are being impacted by this quarrying. And if we turn off Landsat 8, we can see the situation in the 1980s against the situation now. So we can see expansion of agriculture and urban settlements on the coast, as well as the quarries which are supporting that construction work inland. Okay, folks, thanks for listening.